And hello, everyone. Welcome to Community Faith Works Live. I believe it's time for us to get started. We have a full show ahead of us, and I'm so excited about it. So, thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. Happy Friday to you. Yes, we want to say happy Friday because we know this is the day that the Lord has made, and we're still going to rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you so much for joining us on Community Faith Works Live. I got to read my notes because we have a full show today and we're covering some very important topics. So I want to make sure that I don't miss anything actually. But we thank you again for joining us on Community Faith Works Live, also known as CFW Live. And for those that are saying, what is Community Faith Works? What is CFW Live? I'm glad you asked. To learn more about Community Faith Works, of course, you can always log onto our website. But what Community Faith Works is actually all about, it's a capacity building and technical assistance nonprofit initiative in which we train pastors and members of their team on how to be future community economic developers. Right there, you're looking at pictures from inside our classroom where we've been working with pastors and training them. We had wonderful subject matter experts. I'm saying this almost in the past tense, and there's a reason for that. But we have the pastors to go through a 10-month accelerator and have been, so excited about the success that the pastors are having, the new knowledge that they were receiving, learning how to assess their neighborhoods and communities, community needs assessment, asset mapping, all of that great stuff. In fact, we've got other slides as well that shows we took the pastors inside the very neighborhoods that look similar to theirs, in which they've been serving and servicing as the pastor. For many of our pastors, they wanted strategy on how do they actually go beyond the walls of their church. And so we partnered with different agencies, organizations. One of our alliance partners, you can see down at the bottom, is Metanoia. So we were able to take pastors to Metanoia, located in North Charleston, so that they could see the works that Reverend Bill Stanfield and others that are connected with him, what a great work they're doing to revitalize that area in North Charleston. And so it provided so much insight and hope to our pastors because many of their neighborhoods in which their church is located looks like that. And so they started to understand that they didn't have to be in a state of hopelessness, but there is hope along with strategy and resources and partnerships. So that was Community Faith Works. It still is. I only said that in the past tense. It's because we're living through COVID-19. So we were doing the training with the pastors, and then all of us had the life shift where we all had to adjust. In fact, if we looked at the latest numbers in terms of how COVID-19 is impacting not just our nation, but here at home in the state, if we could pull those numbers up to show, we actually have kind of the latest numbers here. And I think South Carolina has about 8,030 cases. And we just continuously see those numbers to increase. In terms of deaths, there are 362 deaths, unfortunately, here in the state of South Carolina. It feels as if we're living in a third world, but this is right here. And so for us, we recognize that we could not continue to train our pastors in the classroom setting. And of course, because each one of them had to focus on what their needs were for their personal selves and even for their ministry and community. So for us, we did a pause and a pivot. And we said, what can we do even in spite of this time that we're living in? And so what we created was the CFW, which stands for Community Faith Works. We created a care response team. And we've got our superheroes that you see there on the camera. And they really are those are a lot of the students and the members of the churches that help to make up that community-based team for that church. And, we put this image up because it just gives us hope and encouragement as we ourselves live through this and find ways to be able to still educate our pastors, educate and connect with our communities, but then also provide them relevant real-time information, things that we have on our website, things that we have through this live broadcast, things that we post on our social media so that we can connect our vulnerable populations, those populations that our pastors minister and serve, connect them to essential services and resources. So that's what our care response team is about. And each Friday, we'll bring on special guests to help us dive in to some critical information that we know our viewers and our neighbors and residents need to know about. So we've got some cool things to talk about here in just a second. But before we do, I just want to give a little bit of a heads up as to what we've got coming up. Outside of our awesome two guests, I had a chance to connect with them a little bit off camera and cannot wait to speak with them. But what we've got coming up here in just a second, we're going to talk about statewide evictions and renters' rights during COVID-19. So many things to consider. We've got experts that are joining us. Matthew Billingsley, who's the lead housing attorney of SE Legal, and Nicole Paluzzi, who's the housing attorney of Charles Bono, rather, and they'll be joining us here in just a little bit. But we also have Resource Roundup. Yes, Resource Roundup. You can actually log onto our website at communityfaithworks.org. That's communityfaithworks.org. And when you go to our website, you can actually pull that up full screen. But when you go to our website, you'll be able to see resource information that you can use for yourself, for your church sister, church brother, your neighbors. And you can find a lot of that information throughout our website, especially if you click on the Congregants and Community section. And speaking of resources, I want to also make mention that listed on our website under the upcoming events tab. So when you go to communityfaithworks.org, you'll see a tab that also says upcoming events. Under our list of resources, we wanted to make mention that there is some free COVID-19 testing sites throughout the state, and we've listed those on our website. So make sure you go to communityfaithworks.org, go to upcoming events, and you'll see those statewide testing sites that are free. So please, please take advantage of that. And make sure, while you're at it, to tell your friends and family about CFW Live, our weekly broadcast every Friday at 1:30, as well as they can check out our Facebook page and the website to get all the latest information. All right, now, this is definitely a moment that I look forward to every single week. We've been doing this now for the past couple of weeks. We are all in need of hope and inspiration. So I'm so very honored and excited to bring on one of our pastors that's been a part of our Community Faith Works program. Pastor Ted Paisley with Restoration Life Ministries is going to bring us our Faith Works moment. I think I see Pastor down there joining us, and I believe we're going to hear him just a second. Yeah, I think, and I'm not sure, I think he may be on mute here.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. His mic is unmuted. Pastor Paisley, we're so happy that you're joining us. I love the quarantine look. I do.
What of
Let's see.
inspiration?
Yes, I think Pastor, we saw your face and we saw your lips moving, but we missed the intro. You got to give it to us because we want to be able to hear. So if you don't mind sharing again.
Okay. Good afternoon. God bless every one of you, and thank you for joining us. And certainly happy to be here today sharing with you. And don't want to take a lot of time for protocol, but certainly I thank God for Pastor and Lady Footman for all that they're doing in the community through Carolina Faith Works. Certainly just want to share a quick word of inspiration and to encourage us that it doesn't matter. Community Faith Works, I said, that it doesn't matter the situation or the time or the season, there's still opportunity. And just a quick thought today of opportunity in adversity. Opportunity in adversity. And certainly we understand that it's difficult and challenging many a times when we allow the circumstances, when the circumstances that are around us can dictate, if we're not careful, our outlook. But nevertheless, it's important for us to know that it's imperative to look beyond the now and see the no. Look beyond the now, the N-O-W, and see the K-N-O-W. In other words, Jeremiah 29:11 tells us, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, but to give you a future and of hope." So we're looking at the no, not the now. Yes, certainly we're in this time of COVID-19 and the challenges that we face, but we know that there's opportunity in adversity. And just quickly, if you would just think, I know there's a story in the Bible that we may not hear about a whole lot and may not read this portion a lot, but it's in 2 Kings 11. And in there's a story of an evil queen who took rule of Judah. And her intent was to wipe out the entire line of David, even though God had promised David that his line would always be someone on the throne from his line of his family. Well, her name was Athaliah, and she was trying to wipe out the whole line of David. But there was a smart pastor and his wife. In the Bible, obviously, it refers to them as the priest. He was the priest, Jedediah, and his wife, Jehoshaphat. They took Joash, the baby, and hid him away in the temple for 6 years. Hid him away because this Athaliah, she was trying to wipe out David's line. So this pastor and his wife took action, and they hid the baby Joash away for 6 years in the temple. But in that 6 years, they weren't just not sitting idle. They were training him. They were preparing him. They were pouring into him to be king. And at the right time, they brought him out of quarantine. They brought him out of lockdown. They brought him out of hiding in the temple and set him on the throne that was meant for him. And of course, the story goes on to say that certainly then Athaliah and all those who were following her got destroyed and got removed out of power. But the key here is understanding that even in the time of adversity, there's opportunity. So we thank God for this priest, who we call the pastor in this day, and his wife, who had the insight, who had the vision to protect this child who was in line for the throne. They protected him, they trained him, and at the right time, they brought him forward. So we thank God so much that even in adversity, even in times of strain and in times of trouble, there's opportunity. So we pray that God shows us and that reveals to us every opportunity, and then gives us the courage to step forth and take advantage of the opportunity. So we praise God for you and thank God for this opportunity. And so just remember, opportunity in adversity. This is Pastor Paisley with your Faith Works moment. God bless you.
God bless you, Pastor. What a right now word. I don't think that I could do any justice even trying to recap that. And I thank God for Pastor Paisley and his wisdom, both he and his wife, for just what they do in the community. They live in Columbia, and we just thank God for how they just are impacting people. Thank you so much, Pastor Paisley, for that word and that Faith Works moment. All right, folks, we talked about that we have a very important show today. Because there are some things that are happening right now today, and we want to make sure that people are aware of it. As I mentioned, our show topic for today is statewide evictions and renters' rights during COVID-19. I want to just pull right up some information on the screen so that you're aware of what's happening today, which is Friday, May 15th. Today, we are expected to see a record number of evictions and foreclosure filings anticipated May 15th, which is today. Now, family, communities, I wish that I was bringing you some really great news, but this is what is happening. However, the good news is we have resources, experts, and trained people that can help us navigate through what is actually happening, and at least to be able to educate and equip us. So this is what's taking place. Record number of evictions and foreclosure filings anticipated for today. The South Carolina Supreme Court has lifted the moratorium. So that's the freeze, that's the suspension of that was enacted due to COVID-19 on evictions and foreclosures. That's as of today. So judicial proceedings will be exacted on homeowners and renters that are behind on payments. However, there are 3 exceptions to this. We want to talk about what those 3 exceptions are. 1, homeowners whose loans are guaranteed through federal mortgages and have been granted forbearance protections under the CARES Act. There's another exception. That particular exception is renters occupying federally subsidized homes who did not have eviction proceedings initiated prior to March 27th, 2020, they have protections under the CARES Act. And then there's a third exception here. Renters on public housing and housing choice vouchers, Section 8, are protected under a temporary ban on evictions, which expires on July 24th, 2020. Now, for those not protected under any of the above exceptions, some financial assistance is available. However, for those that have been behind on payments prior to the pandemic, there's this concern that the financial assistance may be a little too late. To help us navigate and walk through what all of this means, I have some very special guests joining me. Matthew Billingsley, who's the lead housing attorney of SE Legal, and Nicole Paluzzi, who is the housing attorney for Charleston Pro Bono. Just to share a little bit about who they are, Nicole has been a part of Charleston Pro Bono Legal Services since 2017. And after 5 years of practicing law in the upstate of South Carolina, she provides direct representation, legal services, and all housing-related issues within Charleston County. In terms of Attorney Matt, he joined South Carolina Legal Services in June of '08 in the agency's Conway office. He's moved here to Charleston, where he is currently practicing, and even though his coverage is statewide. And his work consists primarily of consumer, housing, and family law cases. I want to thank both our guests for joining us here today. Matthew, I want to really dive right into this order. If you could explain to us, and I know we talked off camera that, this could go on for hours in terms of really helping us to understand, but if you could give us a snapshot of what does this order mean? And we've got it up on screen so that our guests can also view that as well.
Well, it really means primarily two things. Landlords can file evictions again. A little side note to those exceptions we'll go over here in just a second. But it really means that landlords can file evictions. It also means that evictions that were in the process or that were in the middle of a case or about to have a hearing or maybe were already ruled on but hadn't put the person out yet, can then, the pause is lifted and they can go forward. So people, wherever they were at their previous stage of their case, if they already had a case filed at that time, that's lifted and can now move forward. So they need to be aware of that. The other thing that it means is you're going to see a lot of filings from landlords who've kind of been wading through this, where you might have non-payment of rent. There could be other issues as well. The state moratorium put a pause on all evictions. So for whatever reason that would be, and I know Nicole will probably go over a little bit about the reasons for eviction in a run through, but it was a pause on everything. So what's really important to note, though, moving forward is not every landlord can actually still go through or file an eviction due to the CARES Act. And so that's one of the exceptions that you brought up a minute ago and listed on there. The CARES Act protects people either in subsidized housing or where there's a federally backed mortgage that whether it's a multifamily, from maybe an apartment complex or something similar, or single family residence, anything that's federally backed, such as FHA, VA loans, USDA loans, but more importantly, ones that are backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is quite a substantial number of single family loans, and even some multifamilies. If they're backed by that, they cannot file an eviction for non-payment of rent under the CARES Act, and they can't charge late fees. The date of that expiration is actually the same date that you had up on the exception for the Section 8 or any kind of subsidized evictions, which would be there July 24th. But the CARES Act generally is saying that you've got to provide a 30-day notice at the end of that. So I think what people and renters really need to be aware of, if you're behind on rent, you're getting an eviction filing against you, that what you really need to look into and be aware of is that the landlord may be covered under the CARES Act. You may or may not be able to figure that out too clearly on your own. It's important to consult with an attorney through services like us or Nicole's, but also to be aware that there's a form that landlords have to fill out. That form can be located on the court's website, which is www.sccourts.org. That's the South Carolina Court's website. There's a link to forms, and the form the landlord has to fill out is the form number is SCCA 256B. And so that would be something that you need, or that has to be done in order to proceed with an eviction. And what I anticipate that's going to be a big issue in filed are ones that maybe were filed that should not have been filed yet.
Wow. So, and that I could see why this would just take hours to really unpack and to understand. I have a question also for Nicole. So I'm just thinking, what does this mean also for those that are staying in motels and hotels?
So during the moratorium, it was applying only to foreclosures and evictions. So if you were a tenant in a recognized tenancy, whether you had a written lease or otherwise, it applied to you because eviction is a legally significant concept. It's a judicial action. In order to evict someone, you have to go to court. For motels and hotels, the Landlord Tenant Act, South Carolina's Residential Landlord Tenant Act, there's an exclusionary statute. 27-4120 subsection 4 excludes hotel and motel transient occupancy subject to an accommodations tax. So the short answer is, if you were living in a motel or a hotel and you were delinquent on your payment, if you had not been removed, it wasn't due to the moratorium, it was because they just didn't have means of removing you. It's not a tenancy eviction. And if you are attempting to demonstrate that this is your residence or your dwelling, and you want to try and be the exception to the exception, don't go that alone. Reach out to legal services and see if you have what you need to make a showing.
Yeah, I think that that's very critical to know that you're not in this alone and there's help and assistance that could help you. So I have a question, Nicole. In terms of what do you do if you're given a notice of intent to file for eviction, or if you've been served with an eviction action? This show is really speeding by and it's so much that I want to be able to cover. But if you could give us a quick response to that.
We've got some points that are important. First, call South Carolina 211 from any mobile phone to get dialed into the assistance network, or you can reach out to the pro bono division of the bar or the lawyer referral service, but obtain counsel as quickly as you can and start preparing your evidence. So get your ledger, verify that you have your tenancy information. If it's a lease agreement that's written down, have a copy available, and start making those phone calls. Call resources for rental assistance if you are behind on your rent. If you're behind on your utility and you're in violation of the lease, reach out to LIHEAP or other service providers that do utility assistance, and make sure you are notifying the court that you want a hearing to show cause, so that when you do go to court and show cause, you have your lease agreement, proof that you are obtaining resources to cure any delinquencies or breaches of lease, and that you have an advocate in the form of an attorney who is going to help represent you, or at least get you prepared to represent yourself.
Mm-hmm. A lot of great information, and so that people don't feel overwhelmed, these are some of the resource information that you can provide, and legal insight, direction, and guidance through your office, your agency, Charleston Pro Bono, correct?
Yes. We have direct representation on tenancy issues, and we also are a part of the Safety Net Network in Charleston County. If you're outside of Charleston County, or if you just want to go to legal services who also operates in Charleston County, we have a lot of resources available, and I think we provided some links that can be shared, as well as service providers who can provide additional resources that we haven't covered.
Yeah, and we're actually going to list the information for Charleston Pro Bono on our website as well, so that folks will know how to get in touch and to contact your office for assistance. Matt, so I have this question. From a statewide impact, what will this order mean for renters across the state?
Well, it's kind of tough to know exactly what's going to happen until it happens. And I think there's possibly be at least there's going to be a wave of evictions filed. I know that's coming. It's a Friday, so maybe there won't be as many filed today as expected. But I think between today and the first of the week, Monday and Tuesday, you're going to see a lot of evictions filed, probably statewide. And I think there's a lot of landlords that may not know that they fall under the CARES Act, and they're kind of prohibited from filing yet. And I think there's going to be a lot of filing, and most likely. There's some rules. If you see that order, it references another order. It talks about some rules at the bottom of the order. It talks about 30 minutes from the end of one hearing to the beginning of another hearing, and limiting the amount of people in the courtroom. That's not always how things are done in magistrate court, and sometimes you have other types of cases along with them. So I don't know. I think there's going to be delays and it's going to take longer, but I think there could be a second wave once landlords and everybody starts to figure out that they're subject to the CARES Act and whatnot down a little further down the line. But I think it's one of those things that we don't really know until it happens without evictions being filed for this group, this length of time. It's going to be some type of spike, definitely.
Yeah, it's been interesting, Nicole, and Matt. I've just been speaking with a number of agencies that, help to provide rent assistance and utility assistance. And a lot of those agencies are preparing to receive, an increased amount of calls. There's definitely a concern of, an increase in potential homelessness or those that are having to now go to those hotels and motels to stay. So, certainly our thoughts and prayers are for everyone, and I think that for both of you, you bring up such great information that I think not only should tenants be educated on, homeowners be educated on, but I think, even for landlords to know, what their rights and when they may be in that illegal zone. So I just am so grateful for both of you actually being on. We had information up a second ago about Charleston Pro Bono. What folks are looking at right now is information about SE Legal Services. We will have their website link, both SE Legal Service and also or SELegal.org. We'll have that website link up on our website, as well as Charleston Pro Bono, so that our faith community, our neighborhoods can actually get the help that they need. And again, I appreciate how Nicole mentioned, you're not here alone. There is help and there's support. So I'm so very grateful for both Matthew and Nicole for joining us. I've got to have you to come back because, I heard you, Matt, say that there's probably going to be a second wave, of this. So we want to make sure that our viewers are as equipped and prepared as possible. So I thank you both for your legal expertise. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank
No
you
problem.
for having us.
Thank
Yeah, we
you.
appreciate it. Thanks.
And we're going to continue to have great, important information that is helpful to you. In fact, if there's things that you want to know about, I know we meet with our team on a weekly basis to talk about, what is the most pressing issue that we need to be able to broadcast out to our viewers. If there's something that we need to cover that maybe we're not aware of, please, we ask that you communicate with us. You can go onto our website at communityfaithworks.org, and there's a contact us page, and let us hear from you. We are looking forward also to having additional information on next week. We've already started thinking ahead to some of those agencies that can help folks. So next week, we've got a special guest that's going to be joining us from Origin SC. We encourage you all, join us here at CFW Live every Friday at 1:30 so that you can be educated on what you need to know. We're doing a lot of broadcasts that cover COVID-19 issues, challenges, impacts, so that you're protected and you're safe. Again, Nicole said you're not here alone, and we certainly know that. And we thank God for his covering ultimately and for his sovereignty. So we encourage you to check us out every Friday at 1:30. Again, we've got Origin SC that's joining us on next week. And we believe we'll have someone also, a representative from the mortgage industry, that will also be joining us to help us educate our homeowners as well. So make sure you tune in on next week, Friday. We thank you so much for watching, and we will see you right back here next week. Be safe. God bless.